the new Charlie's Angels movie bombed. This is my shocked face. Look, I don't want to sound like one of those purists who says that all reboots need to die, but this is one case where Hollywood needs to just let it go.
God, that phrase is never going to be usable again, is it?
Because Charlie's Angels really was a product of its time that just doesn't fit into a modern setting. Even the films after the turn of the century, while they did have their charm, and I'll talk more about them later, really looked like a prime example of Hollywood filmmakers having no new ideas, which has only seemed to have gotten worse. After every time this franchise has been revived and or rebooted, who was really asking for another version in 2019? Especially after the last attempt to bring it back fell so flat on its face it would have left an imprint in the concrete. Yep, people, we're finally going to talk about it. The late 2000s into the 2010s were when rebooting classic franchises into more dark and gritty versions seemed to really get out of control. That was when came the infamous reboot of The Bionic Woman, which turned off everyone, including the star of the original series. And yet it didn't stop the trend, because it was just as I was making my own review of that show when another such dark reboot came about. This one, of course, of Charlie's Angels. As I mentioned in that previous video, it took all of one episode to show me that series was a total disaster. But now is as good a time as any to finally explain why. So let's get this started.
Once upon a time, there were three young women who got into very big trouble. The first was a Park Avenue princess turned thief. The second was a Marine decorated for valor, court-martialed for a deadly mistake. And the third was a dedicated police detective turned dirty cop.
So, yeah! Instead of the original show's concept of women trying to prove themselves in a man's world, this series has completely changed into bad girls getting a second chance. I'll get more into that later on. Now, I will give the show credit that the original theme song does play here. But at the same time, in another desperate attempt to be trendy, this show has moved the setting from Los Angeles to Miami. Miami in 2011. Which is why I am now obligated to do the rest of the review dressed like this. Suck it, South Beach! So the first episode has these angels, Abby, Kate, and Gloria, looking for a missing 16-year-old believed to be abducted by a child trafficker. When the original show's premiere involved a woman getting killed in a stock car race, and that's not heavy enough for the gritty reboot, that gets a guy worried.
Abby, get Bosley in position. I'm on it.
Okay. Anytime you watch a bad TV show or movie or whatnot, there always has to be a point of no return. That one moment when you realize this thing can't be salvaged. I've never really pointed out the exact moment for all the stuff I've reviewed before, but this is a special case because I will forever remember where that moment hit me in this particular show.
Bosley? Bosley!
There! Right there! This moment, 3 minutes into the series, is where I completely quit on it. The show's producers actually went out of their way to hunt down a doppelganger of the late David Doyle just to put him in a 1-second shot to tease any fans of the original before springing their new pretty boy Bosley on us. This was one of the biggest slaps in the face to anyone who loved the original TV show. The only thing they could have done that might have been worse was if the characters ridiculed someone with Farrah Fawcett's hairstyle. This is why the movies from the turn of the century, even with their flaws, can still hold up. They were made as a tribute to the original, especially since they were clearly a continuation of said series. As mediocre as the second film, Full Throttle, could be for some, I at least will give them credit for bringing up the history of the Angels and even giving Jacqueline Smith to do a cameo. But this thing? This was like them saying, oh, some of you were hoping maybe we'd show a bit of respect toward the original? Well, screw you, Blue, it's our show now, and we're all hip and trendy and dark and edgy, and if you don't like it, you can go hole up in a retirement home somewhere. Now, just in case you're thinking I'm being completely unfair, one thing I will give them a pass on is the voice talent for this show's version of Charlie. Especially since John Forsythe did pass away in April of 2010. Reportedly, the producers of this show recruited Robert Wagner, but he was unavailable. But Victor Garber here, he's not terrible.
I spoke to Sarah's parents, Angels. They're incredibly relieved to have her back, safe and sound.
It is clear they did do a pretty exhaustive search to find someone who could still pull off the calm, confident, complimenting voice that Charlie Townsend was known for.
It's doubtful Mackles even met him.
You do realize the irony of that coming from you, right, Charlie?
Enjoy that one bit of props I'm giving this series because it's pretty much all downhill from here.
Miami PD's been trying to nail Pajaro for years. He doesn't leave any footprints, electronic or otherwise. He's a ghost.
More on that later. Anyway, the Angels succeed in rescuing the girl, but they don't get too long to celebrate because...
I used to steal Warhols.
Damn it, even if I hadn't used the Play Gloria gag in my last Patreon review, it would still be in bad taste here. So while investigating who Gloria's killer could be, using tech that I can't complain doesn't work like that in the real world, because every other police procedural show does the same damn thing, they trace it to someone named Eve, who absolutely cannot be the killer because she's played by Minka Kelly, aka the big name actor they were selling this show with. As if to drive that home, when they go to confront Eve on her houseboat, they are promptly fired on by a guy with a machine gun from a helicopter. They just said the crime lord they were after doesn't leave any footprints, and yet he's had his men employ a car bomb and a machine gun with a helicopter. Was this script proofread at all? Anyway, it turns out Gloria had been talking to Eve a lot lately, and after they break into her apartment, because they apparently can't get clearance to search it, despite supposedly being licensed detectives, they discover Gloria had basically been doing her own investigation and had discovered the identity of the crime lord they've been hunting. To make a long story as less long as possible, they track him down, rescue the remaining girls he's recently taken, and of course Charlie offers Eve a job because that's what this Charlie does. Offer convicted felons second chances, even Bosley, who was busted for computer hacking. And here's where we finally get to just why this show was doomed from the get-go. Even with all of the cheese and, well, cheesecake, Charlie's Angels was at the heart of it all about a team of women being given the opportunity to prove themselves in a man's world that they weren't getting in their previous job fields, mostly as police officers. By changing the whole theme instead to bad girls getting a second chance, you are in some way suggesting that the previous theme can't work in the present day. And without getting too political, I think the present day has shown that's not true. And the only thing it would have ever done was piss off fans of the original series while not doing anything to win over younger viewers who wouldn't be swayed by the allure of the supposedly familiar name. You could have just created your own original series about women on the wrong side of the law getting a second chance working for the right side. Oh wait, someone already did that!
These are the women of She Spies. Bad Girls Gone Good.
Yep, as I suggested back in the Bionic Woman video, what you had with the 2011 Charlie's Angels is essentially a darker, grittier version of She Spies. On the off chance you never heard of this, She Spies ran mostly in late-night syndication for 2 years, starting in 2002, and was about 3 female ex-cons who had been recruited to work for a quasi-government espionage agency. The main difference here was She Spies knew what type of audience it was going for, and thus upped the volume on every reason Charlie's Angels was a cult classic. It almost might have been a parody of Charlie's Angels, and one that worked because it would have been a loving parody.
World's smallest bomb. Heat activated and capable of wiping out an entire city block. That's insane, Dr. Milbrow.
No more insane than 3 beautiful ex-cons working for a clandestine government organization, trying to rid the world of all wrongdoing.
It embraced the same cheese, action, and fun as Aaron Spelling's production with a new twist on the whole idea. Charlie's Angels 2011 failed because it tried to take everything so damn seriously. Everything comes off as dark and morbid. The chemistry that was there between the likes of Sabrina, Kelly, Jill, and/or Chris, or even between Alex, Dylan, and Natalie, isn't here with these girls. Especially as it seems they wanted to play up Abby and Kate's reluctance to trust Eve for dramatic tension. Would it be more realistic that it would take the other Angels time to trust their new teammate? Well, for one thing, the fact that the other 2 were ex-cons themselves should suggest they would know from experience what it's like to not be trusted, so they might be more accepting. But even if that wasn't the case, that's still not what anyone wanted to see from Charlie's Angels. All of that would have been bad enough, except that this was an attempt to completely remake the original series, right down to rewriting a number of the previous show's most beloved episodes. Yes, they even did a remake of the episode Angels in Chains. It really doesn't show a lot of confidence when you have to remake one of the source material's most famous stories 3 episodes in. It did look like they had some type of long-term storyline planned, as that episode ended on the big reveal that not only was Gloria dating Bosley, but she also happened to be Charlie's daughter. Where did it all go? Nowhere! Because the show was canned just a few weeks later and sent forever into television purgatory where it belonged. Everything about this show just reeked of the attitude from jaded film and show creators of present day that seem to take pride in deconstructing everything that was enjoyable in the past. I'm not saying darker and more serious television doesn't have a place. There have been plenty of such shows that succeeded. But taking the cheesy escapist shows of days gone by and basically saying this is how it would be like in the real world just comes off as imposing your own bitter views on the type of viewers who don't want that. And no one was really asking for a darker version of Charlie's Angels. As of this video's release, I haven't yet dared to check out the new film, and I don't know if I will or not. So I have no idea right now if they at least tried to recapture what the original show was about and simply didn't succeed. But even as bad as that film seemed to have flopped at the box office, I find it hard to believe it could have missed the mark any worse than this series did. Because this Charlie's Angels was absolute hell to watch. You all should thank your lucky stars I loved Kristen Bell's performances in the Frozen films, because otherwise, I just might try to make a cheesecake-laden remake of Veronica Mars starring Ashley Tisdale just to get revenge on this thing. See you next time on TV Trash.